You've seen a variety of locomotives on my layout, so the question's out there. What's my favorite? And that's what we're going to talk about today, right here on the Mill Run in Western Maryland. So hop on. Can you have more than one favorite locomotive? Well, I sure hope so, because I certainly do. And I'm not going to bore you with all of them. I'm only going to go through the top 3. Now, this is not a locomotive review. This is not me telling you these are the engines you need to go look for and this is what you should buy. This is just the 3 engines that I get the most enjoyment out of on my layout and why. So let's get started. So the first of the favorite locomotives we'll talk about today is the Heisler. Now, the Heisler locomotive is one of 3 major types of geared steam locomotives. It was probably the least popular, but it was also the fastest. Though it might have lacked in popularity, I find this locomotive very unique. The Heisler's design had 2 cylinders which faced outwards at a 45-degree angle, forming like a V-twin arrangement. The power then went to a drive shaft which drove the trucks. But what I've found interesting about this locomotive is the connecting rods on the trucks. It looks like a European design, which adds to its uniqueness. When I decided to include a sawmill on my layout, it became pretty obvious what locomotive I was going to have to operate there. I found this 2-truck Rivarossi Heisler on the internet used, and I have since restored it, installed another motor, and it has been running flawlessly on my sawmill branch ever since. My next favorite locomotive is 210 Russian Decapod number 1110. Now, my dad instilled in me a genuine interest in the Western Maryland Railway. This obviously overflowed into what I want to operate on my layout, and 1110 was the first steam Western Maryland locomotive that I purchased, and it quickly became the flagship of my layout. 1110 is a Bachmann Spectrum locomotive. I purchased this used off of trains.com. When I purchased this, it was the most detailed locomotive in my collection. I was very proud of it, and I still am. As time went on, I had to do some repairs to 1110, and I eventually changed it over to DCC, which I did some videos on that. I'll put the links in the description below. Just like the Heisler is unique, this particular design locomotive has a unique story. Baldwin was building these locomotives for Russia when the Bolshevik Revolution broke out, and these locomotives ended up being stranded in the U.S. They were eventually bought up by various railroads, and conversions were made so that they could operate on American lines. This adds to 1110's story and the character of the locomotive, which makes it even more fun to operate on my layout. Lastly, but certainly not least, is my 060 USRA Switcher. You've seen this engine before in my videos as locomotive number 382. It has since been renumbered to locomotive number 6 for the Mill Run and Western Railway. This locomotive was part of a Casey Jones train set that I purchased from Walmart probably 20 years ago. It was the best running locomotive I had in my collection at the time, and when I built my layout, it was my main runner. Over time, I've removed the Casey Jones lettering and numbering from this engine, and I've added some details to the paint. I've also had to do some repairs to the drivetrain, which has left this thing with a rather unusual wobble as it goes down the track. It's always an enjoyment running this engine, and it brings back a lot of fond memories. It reminds me how far I've come in the hobby. For this to have been a train set locomotive from over 20 years ago, to being the engine that I started my layout with, and to see it after all this time, still running on my layout, well, that's just a privilege in itself, and it's one of the reasons why it's my favorite. So whether it be real life or just on the layout, this is my list of favorite locomotives. What's your list like? Please put it in the comments below. We'd love to know it. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on what comes out next. So until next time, I'm Chris with the Mill Run in Western Maryland. Thank you for watching.